Ready? I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the work session meeting of the Mayor and Council, Monday, February 6th, 2017. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Borough Hall, by email to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by a law of the schedule, period, including the date and time of this meeting. I'd like to remind all members of the public we have 3 fire exits in the council chambers, 1 on each side of the dais, and 1 in the rear. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Freda?
Present.
Councilman Barloni?
Here.
Councilman Lucy Councilman Inigo?
Here.
Councilwoman Davis? Here. Councilman Caparella?
Here.
Councilman Mignon?
Here.
I'm sorry, Mayor Mignon.
You can demote me, it's fine. And Mr. Sarlo had indicated he had a family issue. He would expect to be here within the next 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, please have a motion to suspend work session and go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
We need a roll call?
Councilman Freda?
Yes.
Councilman Barloni?
Yes.
Councilman Inigo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis? Yes. Councilman Caparella?
Yes.
It's just a mental block.
Bewitched. We have adjourned from closed session. We're resuming work session. Can I have a roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Councilman Freda?
Present.
Councilman Barloni?
Here.
Inigo?
Here.
And Councilwoman Davis? Here. Councilman Caparella?
Here.
And Mayor Mignon.
Here. Okay, we're going to start with Alan is going to give us an overview or a brief update as to where the 2017 budget stands, and then I expect we'll then hear from the library and discuss that specific area of the budget. Alan?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start with Ron, which summarizes some of the correspondence that we've recently received. Some of the changes that we've made since last meeting. There is a reduction in the amount of overtime budget for the police department. That's going to be on the listing of appropriations that you'll see in a few minutes. We reduced the budget for special emergency ordinance for codification of our ordinances. We don't have to have it in our budget since we can pass an ordinance and spread the cost out on this. We reduced the amount of the that we have for the county reimbursement. One of the storms that we had previously occurred in December of last year, not this year, so we will not include that. We included appropriations for 2 grants that we are receiving this year. One is the recycling tonnage grant, which is offset by revenue, and a small supplement to the nursing services for non-public schools, which is also offset by revenue. Your correspondence, you'll also see that we received a better estimate on the County Utilities Authority sewer fees. So we've reduced that based on their latest estimate. We still have to receive the actual bill on this to $990,000. So that's a reduction of $86,000 in that cost. And based on some of these changes, we had to adjust the calculation of the reserve for uncollected taxes. And that's a small adjustment.
Thank you.
Turning to the appropriations, the overall budget is now up 2.48%. The salaries are up 3.36%, and the other expenses are down 1.16%. Revenues have not changed. We go into the tax rate calculation. We have completed the percentage of collection. We can go to a schedule showing you that, but the 98.90 that we use to calculate the reserve for uncollected tax is fine. You don't have to be concerned about changing that number and the effect on the budget. If you want to leave it the same as last year, that would be fine. The homeowner effect of some of these changes was made now on the typical home of $385,000 is $57, a $57 rate. Mayor, I can go to surplus if you'd like.
1 second now. What's the increase in the levy, the percent, do you have that?
I don't have it for percent.
1.8, okay. So the overall budget was up less than 1%, it looked, and then our levy is at
Yeah, the other one,
the total budget. If you go back to total, yeah,
0.84%.
so the budget's almost flat. And the reason that our levy's going up a little bit is that our revenues are also our revenues are down also by 20 or 30,000.
You can see 2,519,000, and here we're at 2,492,000.
26,000. So that's another third of a tax bill. So that's. Okay, I'm sorry. Now you go back to surplus.
From the library, I know that they want to talk about their strategic plan or discuss other aspects. I can show you some history of surplus.
Does the council want to hear that now, or do you want to?
I get finance chair, so that's why you're looking at me. If that's the pleasure of everyone else. Sure. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, right. It's fine. I mean, I was wondering if the liaison for the library board wanted to hear them now or not.
Oh.
I was deferring.
Whatever y'all want, I'm just fine.
I think we should let Alan finish the overall
Yeah.
budget, because then we can talk about where we think the overall budget still needs to go. I'm hoping it's good news, Alan.
Like him.
Okay, surplus. This surplus schedule is historical. You do have a copy of it in your position summary, if you want to see it in the book. So this goes back all the way to 1970. We keep the surplus schedule. This section is based on the audit report, and then the remainder to the right on the spreadsheet is what mayor and councils through the years have asked me to provide, which includes calculations for school taxes. But looking at the columns, we have for 2015 the opening balance on January 1st. And you can see beginning of the year in 2016 we have $3,493,000. The next column represents the amount of excess revenues or unspent appropriations that come back to the surplus account from our operations. We subtract out what has been used in the budget as a source of revenue, which was $425,000, leaving us an ending balance of $3,860,000 in surplus funds at the end of 2016. You can see there's a far cry from 2011 when we had $707,000 in surplus funds. We have a fund balance policy, and how this lines up with our policy. This is a calculation on our minimum target and our maximum target. The minimum at 5% is $2,386,000, and the target number at 8% is $3,818,000. This is important because any excess that's created after the target number of 8% can be used for property tax relief if you don't have any future needs for it, or want to continue building your surplus funds. So there is an excess over what we're ending the year with of $42,425. The state of New Jersey limits you, though, to a calculation on what's considered cash surplus. They don't allow you to budget certain receivables. So based on that, the amount of cash surplus that we have available to us is really this $3,853,000. So that brings your number down to $35,000 in terms of what you could work with. But certainly, this is positive. You're heading in the right direction. Certainly a far cry from where we were several years ago.
I have to say that that's more than being pleased. I think it's phenomenal that we've been able to accomplish it. When we started this, we never thought we'd be able to get back to those kind of numbers, and the fact that we're there, it hasn't been easy, and going forward, it's not going to be easy to maintain it. So I think we should be really pleased with where we are with regard to the surplus tonight. It's good job. I think Alan last year bet me we wouldn't get your target this year. I was optimistic, so we got that $30,000 extra. So I think that's a very great accomplishment for the borough, and I'm sure it's going to help us with our financial standing going forward.
This is the schedule on the tax collection rates. Again, this is important for the calculation of the reserve for uncollected taxes. But our collection rate recently calculated is 99.24%. So you can have a reserve for rate which is equal to or less than this rate that you cannot exceed. So the 98.90 which you used in the year prior, you'd be fine using that again this year. It's always been my recommendation, though, that what you should use to offset your budget or any taxes is what's left in the fund balance of your surplus, and not place pressure on some of these other percentages or revenues anticipated. Because the amount of surplus that you have, that's a known quantity.
Yeah.
You don't know, whether our collection rate will be the same and whether we'll achieve some anticipated revenues during the year. So it's a little bit more difficult to predict.
But we're using 98. What are we using for?
We've used 98.90 the last several years in this calculation. Our actual collection rate has been above these numbers. If you go back several years ago, you
There
can
was
see
a couple of
that
years where we had some low ones.
we used 96% here, and the delta between the two was much larger, and we were generating more surplus back into the town, the uses. So that's an assessment of where we are currently. It would certainly be help in terms of getting all the paperwork done if we met our anticipated date of introducing the budget on the 21st of February.
Could you just please go back to the overall budget and?
Sure. Appropriations.
Yes. So we're up 127,834.
Right.
And then when you add in, we're probably down 26 or so on revenues. So the net is another $150,000, $160,000. That's what we're having to deal with right now. I believe last year our increase was $49, which was much higher than the year before. I think it's phenomenal that we're keeping the actual budget increase less than 1%. That hasn't been easy, and I'd still like to see I'd like to stay on the same kind of increase with the tax levy. We're a little more than that right now, but the only way to get that down is to either use the surplus, which I'm hearing you're cautioning against, and I would probably be inclined to agree with you. On the other side, we may have to go back and look at all the lines again and see if we can just even squeeze out a little more modest reductions to try to keep it flat. I think it's been a long time coming where residents would love to see a zero increase. We're not quite there. but we're getting ever closer. And once we get a sustainable budget, I think, it'll make it that much easier going forward. Building the surplus, we'll be able to absorb any increases we have going in the future, whether it's due to salary pressures or expanding of other, or adding to other services, which we haven't been doing. We're really just still trying to get back to where we were prior to 2010. And not all departments are there yet. Anybody else have any just general comments or any other questions about?
Well, I think we've been doing a great job. We've had, an improvement in the surplus since 2011, and this is a workable budget. This is a budget that's good for the town.
What's the pleasure of council? Do you want to look at the general budget again, or maybe we'll hear from the library and then go from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the only department we haven't really looked at as of yet, so probably be prudent to hear from them now.
Okay. Alan, you just want to just go
Before
over
we
the
start,
numbers
though,
as of now?
Is everybody good with the RUT, keeping the collection amount at the present versus
I think we'll have to look at that at the
the
end.
3-year average versus the
Yeah.
the 1 year? Because we may be able to bump that up a little bit.
Mhm.
What do you mean, go for 290?
Well, you can either use last year's amount, or you can use an average over the last couple of years of what
Because
was
right now,
actually
the
collected.
delta is 0.36, so you want to make the delta a little bit smaller, move up a little bit more?
Well, that's just, I'm throwing it out there now for some thought, but I figure we'll hear from the
Yeah, I remember
library
it's
now.
like every 0.1% is
Yeah.
like 10,000 or something like that on them.
Yeah, it's not, but,
I remember what the RUT is. The RUT is money we have to over budget in case we don't collect all the money that we expect to collect. So it's a forced savings plan, like this. Alan, you just want to just go to the appropriations and then just where we stand with the library. Now, this is only going to show us based on where you have it broken out into.
The library's aggregate salary and wage line, and there are other expenses which does include maintenance by the Department of Public Works.
It does not.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, it does.
It does. And what it's showing here is that it's up $10,000 over the year prior, and salaries are up about 8%, $48,000. There are other items relative to the library, utilities and things, we break those out for the purposes of cap limitations. And you'll see several other utility lines, there's health benefits, that are broken out.
And I guess just for the general edification of the audience and the people watching, maybe, can you explain about the 1/3 of the mill and what that amount is?
Well, the state has mandated that there's a minimum amount of funding that is due for any free public library. And that amounts to roughly 33 cents on every $1,000 that we utilize that allocation. So for the Borough of River Edge, this year the state has mandated a minimum amount of $566,758. The borough has always supported the library beyond this third of the mill, whenever it had the resources available, which is in most years. And our current calculation on what is available to the library at this point is $762,011.80. So So we are over the mill at this point of $195,252. This does not count those utilities that I mentioned or some of the maintenance fees. But it does cover things like salaries, social security, health benefits, pension, other expenses as well.
Alan, we also have a maximum, there's a maximum amount that there's a law for that too, right?
Yes, especially during years of devaluation, you have to meet the maximum, so that there isn't a windfall just based on the reassessment of revaluation.
Okay,
Just, it's creating a collection rate, so it can it lowers the, increasing the collection rate lowers the.
okay? Sorry, Mr. O'Connor.
How are you, Matt?
How are you tonight?
Not too bad.
Yes, I guess we're, as you probably can see, we're actually at the end stages of putting the 2017 budget together. And as of now, I think we've given a lot of attention and a lot of time to a lot of the other departments. And you're the one department we haven't had a chance to sit and talk with directly. And I think that's two. One is that we're generally inclined to support the library, as we've seen over the past several years. And while on one hand I think, you know, we're doing a very good job this year with the budget, I still think there's some room for improvement. That doesn't mean it falls on you, but you are, in terms of salaries and in terms of overall spending, one of the larger departments we have.
Yep.
Behind police and DPW, I believe you're probably their highest in terms of salaries and overhead. So, you know, we'd be remiss not to ask, particularly in light of, which on the face of it looks like a significant increase in costs over 1 year from last year, particularly on the salary side. So we'd like to just, you know, hear your strategic plan, what you envision getting for this, and where the various increases that we're seeing in terms of cost, where they're being allocated, so we have a better feel.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk to you directly. It's the first time we've had the chance to do this in a few years. Always happy to talk about, you know, what we do with the money that we're allocated. The budget that we've presented this year is based on work that we've done all summer and into the fall with the library board. That has basically produced the strategic plan that I handed out. That's not quite finished yet, we're on a third draft. This plan is basically has helped us to come up with a budget that we feel is realistic and responds effectively to the expressed needs of the community. One of the things we did in coming up with this plan is we asked the community in the form of the survey, what is it that you feel that the library should be doing better, that how can the library serve you better, much like a business would if it was trying to increase its market base, we'll say, or its customer base. So we listened to the public. There's a copy of the survey results. It's a thick document there. Please scan through there to give yourself an idea of the type of things people told us. But basically, I could easily summarize it very quickly by telling you that people want more hours, more programs, and better collections. Okay? So we tried to focus on those areas. So our budget presented a small increase in our operating budget. This is outside of personnel of 10,000 to improve the collections, basically, and also to fund more programs. We asked for a few extra hours for some library assistants so that we can extend the hours of the library. The area we're aiming for now is to expand our hours on Wednesday evenings from 7 to 9 p.m. and to possibly also look at, for the first time, having Saturday hours in July. So, you know, we want to be able to do this, and because we know people really want that service, we feel very confident about that. I just mentioned here quickly that we just had our busiest year ever. I'm going to say that again. We just had our busiest year ever. Okay. At a time when the general trend for circulation is downwards in libraries, it's leveling off now and starting to pick up in some libraries. Our circulation figures are through the roof. Now, some of that has to do with, admittedly, Paramus being closed. But if you look back several years there, and you'll see that in the strategic plan, our numbers were doing pretty well even before Paramus closed. So the River Edge Public Library is a hive of activity, of community engagement, and a very, very valued and valuable resource in this community. I'll just point out as well, and I know this is the same for many other departments, and not just in River Edge. Our budget is still below what it was in 2008. And I give you some figures there in the strategic plan that I've taken from our state aid report, which does go as official figures. So we've tried to recover the services over the last 3 or 4 years. We had a strategic plan before this, but I think was very, very successful. We added some hours, we improved the collections, circulation increased, programs increased, community engagement increased. You know, good things have happened at the library in the last 3 or 4 years that, you know, are the envy, I'm pretty sure, of libraries everywhere. For example, the River Edge, the Korean Parents Network had their Chuseok Festival twice now at the library, attended by 300 to 500 people, and a huge success. That kind of thing didn't happen 9 years ago. So the level of participation in activities at the library has really increased tremendously, and it's really a testament to the dynamism in this community. And the library has to respond to that kind of demands of a dynamic community. We can't be just, you know, going through the motions. That's not acceptable in River Edge. Okay. So we have a team at the library. We have tremendous staff. We have the best people. We have a fantastic board that works hard and is genuinely interested in the library being the best that it can be. If cuts need to be made, of course we can talk about that. But I feel that, and the board feels that our request was reasonable, given the history of the library of the last 10, 15 years, given the feedback that we've received, given the knowledge that we have of the community. There's a lot of research gone into this, demographic research, etc., and where we'd like to be over the next 3 or 4 years. So I'm happy to take questions.
I'm trying to see if I have the information for what was broken out for us. I was trying to see in the overall increase in salary budget, what's the increase based on step increases in cost of living versus what's being added to it for additional hours. Do you know what that's?
Well, basically, we're getting 2%.
That I know,
No,
but I'm
no.
talking about the whole, your salary budget's going up $40,000.
Yeah.
So out of the 40,000, do we know, Alan, what that breakdown is as to what the increases would be without adding the extra hours versus?
No, I haven't done that comparison, but there's about 1,000 extra hours annually that we've added.
Sure.
That can be prorated. It's not prorated in this calculation that you have in front of you, but I think that's what's driving most of the increase over the prior year is the additional hours.
So it's the equivalent of with a half of a full-time person for a year, then 1,000 something hours.
But without the benefits. And
This is on the, I should say, the part-time workers, not the full-timers.
Yeah.
We're not increasing.
we're not. We're still at 4 full-time employees. We were in 2008 at sorry, as late as 2010, we had 8 full-time employees. Now we have 4 still. We've stuck with that. And we've gotten by on part-time and hourly workers and increased the numbers of those hours in order to improve services. And one of those services would be expanding the hours of the library.
How many part-time employees do you have now?
We have 9 part-time and hourly employees, plus 3 pages, and they are hourly, and 4 full-time people, including myself.
And you're looking for,
We've added 3 hours each to 3 library assistants. We've also added 2 hours to 2 professional librarians, MLS librarians, the reference librarian 2 hours, and the adult services librarian 2 hours.
Just so I understand, I just want to be clear, just looking at your budget plan, you have 4 hours for library assistants to extend Wednesday, and 4 hours for the reference adult services librarian for Wednesday.
Okay.
For this year. But it's next year, in your budget year 2018, that you have 6 hours for programming in the summer. So you said before that you wanted additional to open up the library in July this year's budget, but in looking at your plan, it doesn't have that occurring until next year. So I just wanted to reconcile.
No, that's not clear. I apologize. We'd be hoping to do that this year, Saturdays in July. We have to look into that, but certainly Wednesday evenings, this as soon as the budget's passed. The extra hours that we're asking for are not just for hours of operation, but also programs. If you look at the feedback in the survey, people want more programs, and they want them at the awkward times of day. They want them in the evenings, they want them on the weekends. So the staff I'm asking for will help with that. I'm also asking for, we also want to build our collections. We haven't talked about that yet. 3 years ago, when I presented the first strategic plan, I pointed out to you that people in River Edge were travelling to Paramus Public Library en masse to get the items that they needed, and that had to change, and we have turned that around. At that time, Buckles was even talking about levelling a fee, an extra fee to, that's the Bergen County Cooperative Library System, Buckles, at libraries that use the other member libraries over a certain amount. That amount they set at 40%, we were at 39%. That figure is now down to 29% because of the work we've done in the last 3 years. So that's because we've invested time, energy, and funds into our collection so that our residents get what they want more often at their own local branch of the public library. So I think that's still too high, 29%, and I would like to do more with the collection. So those 3 areas, folks: collection, hours of operation, and programs. That's what we're trying to hit with this budget and going forward.
Just in this year, you put down for a 10,000 increase in your budget, but in the next 2 years, you're 5,000.
If I remember correctly, the board felt that we should try to spread it out, these requests over 3 years rather than trying to ask for too much too soon.
And that's not baseline budgeting. That's 5,000 over the 10,000 this year, and then 5,000 over the 15,000 the year after. So it's by 2019, it's a 20,000 increase from today.
Over 3 years.
That's on operating.
Yeah,
Not-
not operating.
not
No, that's just operating.
I'll ask the question, nobody wants to ask the question then. If we were to ask you to consider phasing things further this year, what contingency planning have you thought about, or you haven't, and we can ask you to go back and think about, come back, because one thing I'm looking at is, we're trying to, like I said, reestablish all our departments back to where they were prior to 2010. Just this year, DPW was denied 2 employees, who were $32,000 a year each, plus potential benefits. But we said, no, we can't give you all that at one time. So we've been trying, again, we're trying to keep the focus on the overall budget, making it sustainable, and also trying to keep it reasonable for the residents to absorb these tax increases every year. I'm not proud to say we're raising taxes every year, but I am proud to say that, you know what, in the last several years, we've done our darndest to keep the increases from being significant.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, but the problem is when you throw in the local school, the regional school, and the county, our modest increases get dwarfed from that, and people are still getting hit with a several $100 a year tax increase every year, and that is a concern. I'll speak for myself. I think that's a concern, and it's something I think we need to be mindful of, and particularly for people with fixed incomes, and you know, realizing what kind of impact that can have. So that's I'm approaching it in that regard. I think you would not get a disagreement up here of how what a great job you've done, what the board has done, as is doing. I've been to a number of those programs myself. They are very well attended. They're very well received. But again, I'm looking for something to make something that's going to be sustainable. Like I said many times from up here, everything has a positive projection. Our surplus is as great as it's been in many years. The increases are as low as they've been in many years. But it's a very, very delicate balance. It didn't happen easy, and it can go away very, very quickly. And I don't want to see us in 2 or 3 years now coming back and saying, now we're going to give you significant cuts again, because we can't stay under our cap. And, you know, we have our levy cap and we have our appropriation cap. And so right now, you know, our overall budget is significantly under the appropriations cap. Even with the banking and everything else, we're under 1%. That's fantastic. Levy cap is still close to 2. So it's still a challenge going forward. So I said I want to see us maintain a budget where in 3 or 4 years we can adjust things for cost of living, some other increases to accommodate additional services if needed or if wanted, and again minimize the impact on the residents, without again running into a problem where we're going to be coming back saying cut your operating and we're going to start furloughing people or having reductions in staff again. It's not a threat, it's reality. I think in the state, as positive things look, it doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. So that's why I approach it from that perspective. So anything that you and the board can do to ease the pressure this year, and we all understand. Necessarily phasing anything in doesn't save us money in the long run. Next year we would have to draw up the full amount again. It's just, again, trying to balance it from year to year to keep it as minimal of an impact as possible. Council, we can agree or disagree, it's up to them.
No, I don't disagree with the mayor's assessment, because we do know how quickly things can go badly. I mean, we saw it. You reference your 2008 budget, and we know what happened in 2009 in this town. Things went downhill very, very quickly. So we're trying to guard against that by being prudent. That's not to say that what you've asked for isn't warranted or merited. It's just how do you balance the two competing interests. To that extent, I mean, again, I reference your action plan where it says adding the 6 hours in 2018 as opposed to this year. And I would, just for myself, be more inclined with keeping to that as outlined here, looking for you to get your additional hours for Wednesday evenings, but delaying the Saturdays till next year. I mean, that's just me. I don't speak for the rest of the council, but that would be my thought process. Do you know what that difference would be? And again,
It's not that simple to sort of, to put a dollar number on that. What you have to bear in mind is we've never been open on Saturdays in the summer. People tend to take vacation in the summer. You want to take that and you want to have happy staff. Having said that, we would be just as prudent as the council. We would not commit ourselves to expanding hours. What I suggested to the library board is that we do it as a pilot project, see how it goes. And if it goes well, we would try everything we can do to make sure it continues.
No, I'm good. Your assessment
Anybody else?
is right on the money.
There's no question that the library does a wonderful job. Unfortunately, doing the budget, I have come to find out, is excruciating. And, you know, everybody in town wants more from the library, but they don't want it to come out of their pocket. And that's, as you said,
That's the problem.
a big problem for us. But nobody certainly wants to see anything less come out of the library because you're doing such a wonderful job and everybody speaks so highly about it. But it's hard.
Your friend this morning was a big enthusiast for e-books, so that's a
Right.
perfect example of where River Edge residents get very good value from their library card, because that's all done through buttons.
Right.
And we have very high we have 9,000 circulation of e-materials, shall we call them, in 2016. It goes up 1,000 to 1,500 every year. So this is a service that we can provide to people who may have a hard time getting to the library. As long as they have an internet connection at home, they can use library resources. So we're always mindful of delivering value, which is what this value statement is all about.
Well, personally, I'm very pro-library, and everything that you seem to be asking for appears to be reasonable. You've done a great job, and I've been here since 1984, so I've seen the change in the library firsthand. But as the rest of the council talked about, we're working with this budget, so do you feel, I know you have a meeting tomorrow.
Yep.
Do you feel that maybe that you can go back and take a look at these numbers and see maybe where we can pare them down a little more?
Sure.
Perhaps come back to us and
How do you feel about that, folks? Yep. These are the guys who've been working with me.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought they were all police.
We can discuss it. Yeah.
perhaps get a memo out this week at some point that the council can take a look at and consider?
I think it's something that respectfully, we should ask them to consider. And I said, council should be mindful. We've reduced overtime for the police department by $25,000, and we've also not filled 2 DPW positions this year. And again, every department is deserving of trying to get back to the level of quality that they've been providing. And we've been asking everybody to try to, I hate the phrase, do more with less, but that's what we've been saying for the last several years. And it's, I think we just have to ask that from everybody, because it's reality. I'm concerned about not being sustainable going forward. And we said we can get through 1 year and 2 years, but remember what Councilman Bartolone is speaking about, and that's where this surplus comes in very, very crucial. Go back to 2008, 2009, when we were bringing in $3.5 million surpluses, but they were using $3.5 million of budget money, of surplus money to fund the budget. So a third of the budget was being funded through surplus. We've been very, very conservative. We have $425,000. Alan said, we met our target this year. We potentially could return $30,000 back of that. That doesn't seem necessarily the most prudent thing to do at this point, but again, we're a long way from ever saying we're going to be able to take that $3.5 million and apply it towards our $15 million budget. It's not sustainable. And we can't keep increasing that, hoping that's, how we're going to offset the tax increases. It's just, again, it's not sustainable. I hate you same word, but that's it, and I don't want us to get back to where we were in 2009. As long as I'm up here, I will not let that happen, because it led to a lot of pain in this town for a lot of people, a lot of them in this room too, who had to deal with furloughs and no pay increases, reductions in operating costs. So, I don't want those days to come back. So I think we need to be a little more prudent now for the long run. So we would respectfully ask that the board consider if there's anything they can do to phase some of these things in this year, and maybe we'll get a little better handle on what the next couple out years are going to be in terms of your impact. Maybe between yourself and Alan, maybe project what you might see as the future increases in terms of salaries, so we can see where those lines are going. Because it's good to have a handle on our larger departments to know where we're going to be in 2 or 3 or 4 years in terms of net dollar increases, because that translates directly to our appropriations cap. And again, our unwritten policy is that we try to stay with a hard cap. I don't like using the cap banking and all that thing, and I think it's not reliable, because the legislature can eliminate that any day they want. Make it a hard cap like the schools have right now, or they may decide to lower the cap. For the public, this year they came back and they gave us this untenable choice. They said you can either increase your appropriations by 0.5%, or you can use our cap bank and go to 3.5%. And that doesn't mean we can actually raise appropriations by 3.5%, but you get to bank the money you don't use and use it for another year. Like I said, I've called it a shell game, and I still think it's something like that. But the hard cap is something I think that towns, we've demonstrated that we can live within the hard cap. Again, is it the best? Some say no, some people want to see decreases, but that's not always going to be realistic. But we should be trending more towards trying to keep costs contained, rather than assuming you have a built-in 2% escalator every year or more than that, because then, like I said, the impact on the taxpayer is going to be untenable. So we appreciate your due consideration on this, and we'll hear back once you have your meeting, and if there's anything. If not, then let us know that, and the council can move forward, because I still think we expect to adopt our budget on the 21st.
Introduce the budget.
Yes, we'll introduce it on the 21st.
Okay.
And while we're here, I see our president of our board, Juliet, and you just want to recognize the other members of the board that are here. Juliet?
Yes.
So we've got full representation, so very, very thankful for everybody to come out tonight and be here for the, participate, and, we
Thanks for
thank you for
having
your
us.
consideration.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, the council is through with their discussion tonight on the budget. I just asked that we set the next meeting date to try and finalize this prior to the introduction. I know we had talked about the 18th, Saturday the 18th, trying to have a meeting to
I think that's
do a
probably
resolution on
a
the
good
budget.
idea. And then we would be able to have one last look at everything before we go for adoption or introduction. So is that okay with everybody? The 18th?
That's
Sorry,
fine.
I see Mr. Barber, Mr. Zio here from our Citizens Budget Committee. I should have called in. If you have any questions for the library, you can, let us know now, or, send an email to Denise, to Stephanie, and, better than pepperoni. And she can forward your questions to Darren and the board if you have anything.
So the 18th,
18th,
8 o'clock?
8 o'clock. Does anyone else have any comments or questions, or want to make any other further recommendations with regard to the budget at this point? And it goes to Mr. Barber, Mr. Esposito too. Is there anything more you want, the budget in general, any lines you think we should still be looking at? Any other recommendations?
Commendation to all of you. Since we got last, the average increase has been shrinking, and that was a very pleasant surprise. And
We can't take credit for all, we gotta be happy to be Seaway Bill
Yeah.
got reduced. But again, that's another one that you never know year to year what's gonna happen with it. So we get a slight benefit this year. There's years where we've had to have that, on the flip side, considered an increase. So the fact that they were, as low as that increase was, I hope that portends in the future with them also. That hasn't been their trend.
Just food for thought, I guess, maybe going forward, to maybe key people in to think about. Not a recommendation, just for thought, is just looking again at the utility bills. See if that may be an area where we might be able to achieve some additional reductions in the budget. Looks like we're having a mild winter. We don't know, obviously what's going to happen. But, something to keep in mind as we go forward. Just looking at the RUT also, the 3-year average on the RUT has been 99.14%. We had in years past, there was a 99% collection rate, and then, or we used a 99% figure, and then we've dropped it down. I don't know if some thought, maybe it's too aggressive, putting at 99% the collection rate, but that may be too aggressive. Again, I haven't decided what my opinion is on that, but I'm just throwing it out. And then, obviously, again, there's that $35,000 on the surplus. Again, do you use some of that? Maybe, maybe not. Just things to think about as we go to February 18th. That's all.
Mayor, I have to tell you, I am available this Saturday, the 11th, but I'm not available the 18th. I am available on the 25th. I don't know if that changes what we want to do, but I have a prior obligation on February 18th. Yeah.
That's what we want to do.
Well, we could meet this Saturday. We're not
I
ready.
don't know if we're gonna have enough.
And we probably won't have heard back from the library.
All right. Well, I won't be present. I apologize.
Did you do the calculation, Councilman, on what the,
Yeah, I did the 3-year average.
no, I mean on what
No, I didn't what the difference would be. No, I didn't.
they're using?
I went to law school there because they said there was no math.
10,000 per 0.2%, so I don't know if that's the way you want to do it. But, so certainly we can look at all those things on over the next couple of weeks.
Yes, for more than one.
If I could offer just a point of clarification, because I know we talked about the 8% number, the $3 million surplus number, but I want everybody to understand that the fund balance policy was developed by the mayor and council several years ago. It was done looking at other policies nationally. That was taken into consideration, but those percentage numbers are based on what the borough needs for cash flow purposes. So that $3 million is needed in order for us to meet our obligation to pay the $35 million to the schools on an almost monthly basis. We have to do that every month. That number allows us to pay our vendors, pay our payroll, pay these other taxes that we must collect and remit to these institutions without having to go out and borrow on an operating pay basis. All the years that I've been here, we've only had to go out once on a tax anticipation note and borrow for operating purposes. We only collect taxes 4 times a year, so it does put a strain on the cash flow. And this surplus does allow us to meet those needs without having to do borrowing on an operating basis. So I just wanted to offer that so people have an understanding of where that number came from and the purpose that it serves to the borough.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just thinking of,
Yeah, I don't think you're,
no, my thought was maybe 15,000 of that 35,000 figure, just
No, I'm just-
so the council knows my thought
I'm
process.
just
as one of the authors of the
Yeah,
policy,
who wrote
I don't
it,
think
yeah,
you
helped
wanted
write
to
Yeah.
use it for what we
Yeah,
intended
no.
to be.
No, it's just
No, I'm speaking to the overall number that's out there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I
What
was
it's,
thinking
what it's actually used for.
like $15,000. Kind of a, pay.
All right, thank you, Mayor, that's all we have on the budget.
All right, no, I don't need to know.
Yeah.
But it's good to say it for the.
Discussion of sergeant's list.
No, I'm gonna hold that off for now, because I'm gonna, that's the pay now, so I'm gonna try to hold that. And, personnel subcommittee, did you want to, item 2 on the discussion?
No, after the work session, I think the contracts committee can schedule, can meet. I have one issue for them to consider. I listed the personnel in case there was something the personnel subcommittee had to consider based on what the library might offer at tonight's meeting, but I don't have anything else other than that.
And then you'll be in touch with the contracts committee to discuss whatever.
Well, if they will stay after the work session, I will, I have
That was the
material for
intent.
them to
Okay.
study.
Very good. Our work session consent agenda for next week, transitional aid application, whether you want to just mention this, I know it's a pro forma
Yes,
exercise
this
we
is-
go through every year.
Yes, this is part of the questions that we have to answer as part of the review process for the budget. And the state wants us to either commit to apply or not to apply. Now, transitional aid is traditionally a program for those municipalities that have had some extraordinary tax need. A large taxpayer moves out of town, or there's some other reason that they need additional state aid. It also requires that the municipality enter into a memorandum of agreement with the state indicating how they will not become dependent on this aid as well. So it's really not meant for municipalities such as ours, but I do have to ask the council the question as to whether an application is desired and that we go into the program. I did provide a full memorandum to you in the correspondence section of your notebook on this as well. So I would recommend to not apply.
And that-
So moved.
And that will, we'll do a consent agenda.
I wouldn't do it as a consent.
Number 2, approve request from the Rec Commission to place a banner at 140 Tippecanoe from March 17th to April 22nd to promote the 2017 River Run. I assume there'll be no objection to that. Item 3, extend our current solid waste service contract with BCUA for additional year through June 1, 2018. Alan, is this at their request, or is it something statutory that we have to comply?
No, they've gone out and they've got a new contract extension, taking the rate from $68 a ton to $68.25 a ton. So it's a reasonable increase, and we recommend that we enter into this agreement with them.
So they're bidding for, that's for their landfill.
Yes, for the landfill.
Any questions or comments on that? And then, item 4, it's agreement with Cost Engineering for the 2017 Riverside Cooperative Road Resurfacing Program, inspection not to exceed $10,000. We do our road improvement bids in conjunction with Riverside Cooperative, but we have our own engineer inspect the local roads to make sure that the limits are complied and that the tonnage that we put down is actually the tonnage that we're paying for, and to make sure that the quality work is acceptable to the borough standards. So that's why we list that separately. Any other questions or comments on that one? If not, then have a motion to accept the work session consent agenda that will be placed in the public meeting for the 21st.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's just run down quickly the unfinished business. I have a question on Grove Street, Stephanie. Where do we stand in terms of how many permits were sold this year?
I think there's only one spot left.
Maybe probably go bring this to John. I was down there a couple times, and I think we probably can add comfortably 2 spaces. at the end. And I know we had an inquiry from a resident about wanting to get a permit possibly. So, if John and maybe Mr. Costa can look at it to see if we can safely add a couple more spaces, then I think we should consider doing that. And I also think for the longer term, we should get some input from Mr. Lynch as to how we address that area in general. There's debris that needs to be removed. There's an issue with the retaining wall, which I'm not even sure if it's our issue because it's not our wall, it's retaining adjacent properties. But I think that's something we have to start looking at because if we have an issue, it's going to be an emergency and we're going to want fixing it and costing a lot of money if something happens with the wall back there. Anything else on Grove Street? Community center, we're still vetting our design and trying to get a handle on expected cost. Hopefully we'll have that, hopefully within the next month, I'm hoping, and then we'll know whether we can move forward with a plan or whether we have to revise the scope or looking at phasing the project or looking at something else entirely. So I would hope that within a month we'll have more information on that. Shade Tree Commission?
We were going to meet with Shade Tree. It was Councilwoman Murphy supposed to get some dates. She was the liaison for the last couple meetings. Yeah. So I can work with the new liaisons. We'll sit down and get some dates.
And this was also to discuss some of those ordinance issues that I raised.
Yes. We're going to meet with them.
And that'll tie into the next
Yes,
item, serve sidewalk
Take a look.
curb
Good job.
responsibility. Okay.
Hopefully we can report back in a month. I know when the next one is.
Is there any other unfinished business? New business? There's one item left for discussion, and that's the extension of the eligibility list for promotion to the police department for the rank of sergeant. I will include myself from this discussion, as will Councilwoman Davis, so I'll ask Councilman Papaleo to serve the chair for this. I'm going to go to the room when you're done, and if we want to continue the work session afterwards, we can continue. So we're going to want to come back and talk about the contracts committee and how, what other committees, how we want to go forward with the work sessions. And I think I also want to talk about meeting dates for the rest of the year. So I do want to stay on work session after we're finished.
So we can go back into new business.
Yeah.
If there's no objection on the council, I'll remain in the seat that I'm in while I chair this portion of the meeting. Seeing none? Okay, so the topic at hand is the extension of the eligibility list for the promotion of police department for this rank of sergeant. I'd open this for discussion, and I would ask the liaison to police department to, if you don't mind, to begin the discussion.
Sure. I think everybody's seen the resolution that was circulated, or I hope at least you did. The list as currently for the rank of sergeant that we presently have will expire, I believe it's on March 16th of this year. And the question before the council presently is whether or not that list should be extended for an additional year, or we should allow that list to lapse, and then at which point, if there's an issue with needing additional sergeants or hiring a new sergeant or whatever, we would have to then go through the testing provisions set forth in our ordinance. So that's the question that's before the council right now.
Yes. Do you have any recommendations that you would like to offer or comments?
I mean, as of right now, I don't know. I would assume that when this was entered back on March 16th of 2015, that additional officers have become eligible for the rank of sergeant that were not eligible at that point and who currently are. So my thought would be to allow the list to lapse, in fairness to those officers who may not be eligible. That's my initial thought.
Alan, towards that question, how many officers would be currently eligible?
Police chief is here, I'm sure he can answer those questions for you.
Chief, if you could address that question for the council and record?
There's one officer presently who's eligible for the testing that was not when this list was first formulated.
Okay.
And just confirmed that there are 2 other officers hired that would break that 5-year mark, allowing for eligibility effective tomorrow.
Okay, so
Early this month,
3 more possible candidates.
by the time the test was actually configured, should one be needed, yes.
Chief, what would be the cost to the borough to go through the process again, approximately?
We've run a written test through the State Chiefs Association for candidates. They have a fee scale that's approximately, they break it down based on number of total candidates. They have a range from 1 to 10, and I believe the last time we had a price that was, Alan, maybe you know, I think it was close to $2,000 per test, or $1,900 per test per person eligible to read through the list. Then there's also that rank requires a psychological assessment. There's interviews with the mayor and council, and then there's an internal cost as well of internal assessment centers and evaluations that go for the sergeant's position, as well as the length of time it takes for the process to be considered. And I would just like to add that this concern that Councilman Bartoloni is raising is something that I have discussed with him, and I do share that concern. It's a time when someone becomes eligible for a list. I know when the first sergeant's test that occurred after I was hired, I was cop about 4.5 years at that time. So I didn't take the first test. I watched others take it. And then the next test that came up was approximately 6 years after that, and I was promoted on that list. So I remember that, and I understand it, and the only thing that I would bring up for discussion as it pertains to this specific point in time is there's a ordinance proposal in front of the council about a promotion to sergeant, and that's relatively imminent. And by the time all of the issues that are involved in passing the ordinance, and then the ordinance going into effect, and then having an actual promotion take place and a resolution to support that, it could potentially just eclipse the termination date of the sergeant's list by a very short margin. So while I wouldn't necessarily want to see this be extended for an entire year, the ordinance does provide, at least to my understanding, and Borough Attorney Sarlo could address this further upon his review of the ordinance, but I believe it allows the council some wide latitude in determining how long a list can be extended for up to a year, is what the wording is in the ordinance to my reading, and also that the council has latitude how many times that it's extended. And then aside from this particular promotion that's before the council with the ordinance that was read in the last open session, I'm looking ahead on the horizon and seeing the likelihood of anyone else retiring and opening a vacancy within that year's period of time. And I know of no retirements that are imminent that would cause an opening other than what's before the council presently. So if there were multiple retirements on the horizon, or even likely, that's a consideration in favor of prompting a new test sooner rather than later. If there aren't any other promotions, save for the one that's being considered presently, and we're talking about a short period of time to bridge the passage of that ordinance and the other issues that are attendant to that, then perhaps a shorter window of extension would be in order.
Does anyone on the council have a question for the chief?
No.
Thank you, chief.
Did you want to open it to the PBA?
I do. I was going to call him next. I thought the council may also wish to hear the thoughts of the PBA. I know that its president's here, so I would invite Joseph Semines to come up, and if he'd like, and offer his input to the question.
You want it on that particular,
Yeah, I want to keep it to that point.
narrative scope?
Right now. If we want to open the scope, we may later. You got to come up? Come on.
Well, no, I think that, because just, I guess procedural question, is just, if you make the approval on this tonight, where would it go from there? There's an ordinance or something that happens, or it's one shot and done?
Sure, I think that's a fair question. Mr. Sarlo, if you could address that?
There'd be a resolution on to the next meeting.
So would it be dealt with tonight?
They would, no, they're approving to put a resolution on for the next meeting, but it still has to be adopted at the next meeting.
Right, I think we'll reserve comment at this point.
All right. Sure.
Until we see,
Well, can I ask you a direct question? Do you think maintaining the list is just or unjust? Do you think it's fair or unfair?
based on past practice, I would say, or not past practice, I'll say the last sergeant's exam,
Yes.
I would say no.
So maintaining the list you would consider to be unfair
Correct.
to some degree?
Yes.
Okay. Do you wish to comment on that?
Well, I think the same situation happened last time, that a new officer had become eligible for the test, and that's why the list died, we'll say, last time, or was terminated last time. And that same situation actually was present when the list got extended last March.
Okay.
So I think we're kind of already in a situation where it's been extended once for somebody who's eligible, and now, like the chief said, you have another, two people who are eligible, as of tomorrow.
So I'd make a total of 3 that would be eligible.
Right, and the one was eligible last time, yes.
So I'd make it 4.
No, the one who's eligible.
Do we have to, does that, the one who is eligible, does that person, if we don't extend it and we don't promote before it sunsets, would they have to go through the process of the re-interview process? And yeah, so that would make it 4, right?
No, just 3.
Just 3.
Also,
we're
Officer
counting the
Sanchez
previous
was-
one.
Right, the previous one also.
Okay, I get it now.
Your list will expire prior to the adoption of the ordinance.
No,
Because you have, next meeting is the second reading.
there's a second reading.
There's a second reading, then you have to publish. And then when's the next meeting? Is it before March? Yeah, and the list expires March 16th.
So you mean we have to swear that if we did have a new sergeant, he or she would have to be sworn in before?
Unless you flip the meetings, which you're going to talk about your schedule for March meeting.
Right now, as it stands, the list expires before you have the ability to hire off this list. Because it's a second reading, then you have to publish. So your next meeting is right now, March 20th, and the list expires March 16th. So you have to be aware of that.
Okay.
But that may change anyway.
But what the chief said is accurate in terms of extending it for...
Yeah, if you read the ordinance, and the ordinance basically says that you have the right to renew the list as often as you desire for a renewal period of up to 12 months. So if you take it literally, yes, you can go extend it, not up to it. But if you read further, and this is something you may want to check, otherwise the list will expire at the end of the initial 12 months or after one or more 12-month extension. So then it goes into saying, hey, look, it's a 12-month extension where it'll just expire. So it says up to, giving you the authority to do that, but then when it's a little ambiguous when it talks about when it's going to expire. It talks about after each 12-month extension.
So, forgive me, but does that mean we can do less than
Yes,
12
I would
months?
say you can do it up to, because it says for a renewal period of up to 12 months.
And that would be by resolution, it wouldn't have to be by ordinance
No,
because
it's
the
by
ordinance is
resolution.
already in control. All right.
By resolution.
Councilman Arcufreda, do you have any?
No, I'm good with doing the resolution.
Doing the resolution.
Yeah.
But for what period of time? Do you have any thoughts? Councilman Chipingo?
We need to bridge also the need of having meetings where a substantial part of this body will be attending them.
Mm-hmm.
And with the switch to Monday and Tuesdays, I mean, that's a whole other discussion, so it becomes a pressing need, which I really don't want to make it any more than it really is. With all due respect to all the stakeholders in this.
I guess you gotta feel, is there an immediate need to fill that? If you adopted it on second reading, is there an immediate need to fill that sergeant position?
Right.
If there is an immediate need, then obviously you have to act upon it. If you're just changing the table of organization, but there's not an immediate need to act upon it, then you have to weigh your pros and cons of adding additional people to the pool of candidates or not.
All right, is there any further comment or concern? Do we have any sort of consensus?
Okay, once again, I'm sorry, kind of slow tonight. What are the choices here?
Our choices,
We managed to mix many things up.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Councilman
Okay.
Bartoloni as the police liaison speak to that.
it's all mixed up because you have the table of organization also being debated right now with the addition of another sergeant's position. So the question is, and the chief has asked this council to amend the table of organization to add an administrative sergeant's position. And he's articulated what he believes is a pressing need for that position now. Okay. If you don't extend the list, then, but we change the table of organization, let's just hypothetically say, but you don't extend the list and then you are unable to fill that position before the list expires. One, we don't have money in our budget for sergeant's testing. And two, depending on the length of time that takes, that position could then go unfilled for a substantial amount of time, especially since we don't have monies appropriated for that testing. So if it's the intention of the council to change the table of organization, to add the administrative sergeant's position, and it's the intention of the council to fill that position contemporaneously with the adoption of the ordinance, then you may have to extend the list for a period of time to allow that ordinance to be published and for that officer to be sworn in. That's all the issues that you're dealing with. And
Yeah.
I think
Right
that
now
covers
we
it
have
all,
4 days
everybody?
shortfall.
What's that?
Right now, we have a
Sure.
4-day shortfall, is that what we're talking about?
If we move ahead with if the second reading goes well, Mr. Zala, if we've had our first reading, can the table of organization be modified before the second reading and still have the second reading?
If there's no substantial alterations, then I won't have a problem with it. If it substantially alters it, then you need to reintroduce. So it depends what the changes would be. And what I mean by that is, if there's a position that's existing right now,
Yeah.
and you now removed it, if you want to add it back in, I don't find that as a substantial alteration because it already exists. You want to change any other numbers, increase or decrease, sergeants, lieutenants, or anything else, patrolmen, that is currently there, then I would have a problem with it, and I would say if that's a substantial alteration. But because something exists, you're removing it, you're putting it back in, you're back to square one. I don't find that as a substantial alteration. If you start changing your numbers around, you're altering.
Just playing devil's advocate then. So if you went from the proposed ordinance as first read calls for 3 lieutenants and 6 sergeants. If you amended that to go back to 2 lieutenants and the addition of leaving the captain back in, would that be a substantial alteration, in your opinion?
All right,
Put you on the spot.
that's fine, but I'm just trying to get my things in the road here. What's existing right now?
Existing right now is a captain, 2 lieutenants, and 5 sergeants.
And now your proposed is 3
Proposed.
lieutenants?
Yes.
And
No- 6 sergeants.
And yes, because you're changing your numbers again now.
Well, no, what's proposed currently as first read would be no captain, 3 lieutenants, 6 sergeants. If you then went and, again, devil's advocate, if you went to, said, all right, we're not going to remove that captain's position, we're going to leave the captain and have 2 lieutenants, go back to where it was, the 2 lieutenants, but the only addition would be that 6 sergeant, would that be a substantial alteration?
Usually I'd say no, but now you're changing two slots, and because of the interest that this is generating, I would probably say play it on
Err
the
on
safe
the
side, yes, err on the side of caution. I never like to lose a case on a technicality.
Sure.
I don't mind losing it on a
On the
substantive, on the merits, but on a technicality, I don't. So because now we're changing 2 spots, I'd say let's err on the side of caution. Then go back to the drawing board and then reintroduce if you're not going to go with what you got.
But then it seems to me we have to act on the table of organization first, give ourselves more time with,
Well, if I may make a suggestion too.
Please do.
Put this on hold, bring the mayor back in, and he indicated he wanted to talk about changing some of the meeting dates,
Right.
which now may affect this decision because you have a 4-day shortfall. You may not have that shortfall anymore if he's now going to start proposing some changing in meeting dates. You may want to hear that first.
But I
Or
think
you
we're
could-
going to change the table of organizations that currently reads. I think that might be something council wants to consider. How about this? Can we extend for 3 months and then in 3 months extend again?
Yeah, it says up to 12, and you can extend as long as you want, up to 12 months out of clip. So the answer is yes, you can continue extending 1 month, 3 months. You can. I see that.
I think right now there's just so much influx that we may wish to just extend for 3 months. And if we needed to extend another 3 months, we could, but if not, so, could I have a motion? Well, let's have discussion. What about the idea of extending for 3 months so that we can, because I think there should be some discussion on the table of organization, and maybe we might want to make a substantive change to the table of organization. Maybe we may want to do, I have to say, I'm leaning towards voting for or wanting to vote for a table organization that leaves the captain in, removes the extra lieutenant, and puts in the extra sergeant.
that's not on the agenda.
It's not, but it has an impact on the
But-
decision-making we're doing.
But we keep making a big minestrone soup here.
Well,
Divide and conquer.
I'm just trying to,
Divide and conquer, just get the 3 months
That's what I'm
extension.
saying.
We get that out of the way.
Good.
Then we start dealing with our own dates and our own table of organization. I am not prepared to discuss the table of organization.
I'm not saying you should, I'm simply offering
I'm not, I
justification
won't.
for why we might want to extend for 3 months.
What is the
We want to
negative,
extend for 3 months, period.
what's the negative to extending for 3 months, if any?
Nothing I can think of.
All right,
There's
there's your
no,
answer.
okay. So I need a motion to extend for 3 months?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any abstentions or nays? No? Okay. All right.
Thank you, Tom.
Want to call the mayor back in?
Oh, Mayor.
Would you please? Thank you, Lieutenant.
Excuse, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good for March.
Hmm?
I'm good for March. We can switch and keep the quorum here. That's Ellen will be back.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I know.
God, let me have a couple of Tic Tacs to my dinner, my
That's
antipasta.
why I brought them.
Huh? No.
Well, we just need to settle the whole,
Thank you.
we shouldn't be doing both at the same time, but just.
Oh, I gotta go home and back.
No, it needs to just come to a swift conclusion one way or the other, get past it.
100%.
Gotta go home and back. No,
So
I'm
it's
here.
6.
Yes, yes. Well, if we extend the list that we filled, then it's 5 that would be eligible the next year. So I just, who knows how much? Who knows when that would be? There may be more, but that's before they should. We don't know.
Be back on the 22nd. It's okay.
I'm gonna think Vito.
Gets my mind off on
Yeah,
it.
well, it's good.
So, you know, you guys are making these.
Councilwoman Davis figured out about 300,000 worth of budget cuts while we're in the back. So
Awesome,
You would have to cut a department.
Trying to
I
keep
think started with
myself
the borough
awake.
attorney, she said.
Sour, there you go. One way.
I think we need it. Are we ready to resume?
Yes.
We're back at new business. Can you please take a roll call, Madam Clerk?
Fred, yeah. Yes, that's it.
Councilman Marlbone?
Here.
Councilwoman Christie is absent. Councilman Kimiko?
Here.
Councilwoman Davis?
Here.
Councilman Cavaleo?
Here. Are we confusing you tonight?
Yes.
It's getting late.
Yes.
Oh, it's early.
We'll
Come on.
start, maybe we'll start starting earlier.
You forget what time we started.
We did have a lot on.
6:30. Okay, we're in new business. Meeting schedule. I just wanted to clarify this. We had changed our meeting schedule this year. As you know, we had decided that we were going to have just one public meeting, which we scheduled for the third Tuesdays of the month, and we held our work session nights to the first Mondays. And speaking with Councilman Freda, we were discussing whether it might be better for him to flip the public and the work sessions and have the work session on the third Tuesday and have the public meeting on the first Monday. And I don't know if that helped you or
That does,
That's better.
but I'm one of 6.
But you're an important one.
and
Yes,
that's right. If it's going to mean less conflicts for you, then I
Yes,
think
And
that
we
that's
want
what
that.
we'll do. So,
Tuesday's gonna be,
well, we're still going to keep the same dates.
I know it is.
Yeah, except we'll have public meeting on the Monday, and then we'll have work sessions on the third Tuesday.
starting when?
Starting on whenever Stephanie can get it advertised, and so would we expect then to have our meeting on the 21st, and then start in March with the first public meeting in March? Is that how you?
Mayor, I will not be present on the 21st.
Neither will I.
You would switch to the 20th.
President's Day, the 20th.
It's okay
You
with
switch it,
me.
you switch it to President?
Switch to the
My head hurts, so.
I don't remember assuming that. Yeah. No, March or,
20th. March, I'm sorry.
oh, March.
March.
We're talking
Yes.
about March.
No, I'm good.
Yes, but the public meeting now will be on the 6th.
Sixth,
So
right.
that's okay for you.
Yes.
The work session.
Right.
But,
They just opened it. The first meeting. of
Will be the public
is now gonna
meeting.
be- Right,
correct,
and the Tuesday meeting is now gonna be the
the work sessions, yes.
Yeah,
I don't make this worse, but are we meeting on the 21st or the 22nd?
No, this week, the 21st.
21st.
For February,
Yeah,
it's
just
gonna be the 21st.
Because the
March we
20th
changed
is
it?
President's Day.
March, we had changed it?
March, we changed to the 20th.
Yes, for Alan, so and we're still having it on the 20th of March. That's not a holiday, so that's why, I thought Alan was talking about
21st, that week?
February, I was getting confused.
Did you repeat what March is?
March will be, the regular meeting will be Monday, March 6th, and the work session will be Monday, the 20th.
The 20th?
Yes. Instead of Tuesday, the 21st.
But I guess we'll keep that schedule going forward.
Maybe, I'll see.
Is that what it's for?
The idea is that we want to get as many people here for the public meetings, and then the work sessions, again, the model going forward, we're hoping we'll have our standard regular work sessions, and then we'll be able to adjourn them to have, whether it's going to be personnel subcommittee or finance subcommittee or other subcommittees, we'll have time after the work sessions to do some of that business.
21st is going to be a work session that you're moving to the 20th.
March, correct.
This February 21st
Is
is
a regular public meeting. Clear as mud, right?
Yeah.
well,
So the 20th is the public meeting, and March 6th is the...
No, no.
No.
Once we go to March,
Yeah.
first, March 6th will be the public meeting,
Okay.
and the work session would have been Tuesday the 21st, but we already previously decided to move that to Monday the 20th, because Alan had a conflict on the 20th.
Oh.
So now instead of that being the public meeting, it'll be the work session.
So on President's Day.
No, March.
March. I just want to know when's our next meeting in February.
It's 21st, the regular public meeting.
That's all I want to know.
Right, public session.
Okay.
This month.
Who's on first? What's on second? I don't know.
You're
who's
going to
on
make a
third.
list first, right,
We
Stephen?
already have the list.
I will not be at the February 21st meeting,
Yes,
but I will be at the March meeting.
yes, and read that. Good.
So,
All color coordinated comments.
Good girl.
Leading your work.
And council wants, we can schedule meetings every week. I'll leave it up to them. They could, rotate who wants to be here. Yeah, I got it. Right, any other new business? Or there's something else I want to mention? Well, no, Alan was gonna look at the contract.
I thought you wanted to mention this.
Anything else you want to mention?
So there's no time to go to the beach.
I don't know, Mayor, I don't know if it's new business, it's old business, but it's, well, it's, I guess it's ongoing, but it's reaching a new phase. Come on.
Starting on Councilman, please.
I'm just saying, it's kind of unfinished business, but at some point it has to reach a new phase, and that's our meetings with the Board of Ed and with Rec. At some point, do we need to start considering if there's some type of lease agreements or something like that, and start drafting that, and engaging our borough attorney in those discussions?
With respect to what?
Our dealings with the Rec Commission and the Board of Education.
Can you be a little more specific? What do you mean?
Field improvements.
If I speak over the siren, it sounds like I'm being bleeped, so I don't know how long it takes to sound like that. Well, we had the meeting last week. I would expect that we're gonna have continue to have regularly scheduled meetings with them. I think, the way we left it was that they were going back to the board to explain what criteria we're looking at for the format of agreement. I did raise the issue, Alan, regarding practices with regard to snow plowing and those issues, and nobody seemed to be aware of any formal written agreement or able to access it or recall it directly, but that doesn't mean to say that they won't. So if you want to reach out to their interim VA, he wouldn't be surprised if you're asking for it now, because we did discuss it.
Mr. Mayor, when you say agreement, what agreement were you looking for? Was there an interlocal agreement?
We have several going with the school district. One had to do with use of the fields, one of it had to do with use of the auditoriums, and apparently we also had I don't know if it was a formal interlocal, where we provide support to the schools with regard to snow maintenance, shoveling, particularly plowing the parking lots. I think school personnel do the sidewalks. But there was a question about, from John Lynch, Superintendent of Public Works, what were the parameters of the agreement? No one seems to really know anymore, and it's like one of those things that's, it has its own life, and people can basically assign any criteria that they want, because no one was here long enough to remember.
That's
And-
true, Mayor, but there are some documents that exist. And Alan, I think, is doing a request for more information from the DOE. Is that correct, Alan?
Let me just say, without getting more information, their interpretation of, I think, of what the agreement says is not probably what we said the interpretation of the agreement is. I'll put it that way. So until we actually get a document and see what the actual agreement was, I think if you ask them what our rights and obligations were, may be different from what we think they are. So that's why.
But the information, the documents we did find, are they?
They weren't aware of the.
So no documents exist?
Well, no, I didn't say that. They weren't aware, I had just brought this up at the meeting, so I had thought Alan had reached out to him prior to that, but he wasn't aware of any request.
Because I thought the way we ended the meeting was that Alan was going to reach out, instead of myself and Mr. Lynch and Alan going over the BO and asking for information Alan was going to send. That is actually what my notes say.
That wasn't my understanding, Mayor. I thought you were going to make the inquiry, and I was to hold off until you had that opportunity. But I'll certainly go and ask the board secretary.
Yes, it doesn't matter, the issue's been broached with the district, they're aware of it, they're not objecting to it, they're not denying that there was some kind of agreement in place, but we'll have to get a copy of the actual terms of the agreement, and we can, because now we're looking into redoing the agreement with the fields, we're looking into incorporate the agreement with regard to the auditorium space, and obviously I think it would make sense now to incorporate any, support we give them for physical maintenance also, so.
The auditorium at Roosevelt, is that what
And
we're talking about?
It was,
And Cherry Hill, for the basketball programs, I think largely.
yes, but you don't quote me on all the details, I don't have it in front of me, but apparently at one point what happened was we had sponsored some grant applications, but the school couldn't get them, so we had to fund it, but they were going to reimburse us with in-kind use, and that went for several years, and then so there were other side requirements as part of that agreement.
Was this just use or also capital improvements?
It was just use at that point. And with regard to the field maintenance, that's one of the issues we're coming up to now, is because it basically says that the borough is responsible for the maintenance of the fields. Define that however you want. And that's one of the issues. Because it's not defined in the agreement. So it means different things to different people, and it's meant different things to different groups over the years. So it's something now where it's become an issue that we have to get some more targeted and clear language and really lay out responsibilities of both sides. So we all get what we want. They want us to use the fields. We want to use their fields. We want to see some upgrades. They're willing to even put, cost share on some. I can't speak for the board as a whole, but we have, again, in concept discussed that with the superintendent and the board about participating in some of the costs, and that needs to be handed out.
I was just wondering to Alan if their VA had reached out to you at all regarding AEDs. They'd presented us with an indemnification, an hold harmless agreement.
I had asked them for if they had any sort of a model agreement that they would like us to take a look at. He did not produce that. I referred him to Bobby for a more detailed discussion on that, and I haven't heard anything since.
They presented us with a draft, so we told them to reach out to you to then refer it to
I can
Mr.
just
Sarlo.
give it to you when you.
Yeah, but
I'd like our risk consultant to review.
Also, I would just ask Mr. Sarlo, is there this common practice where we need to indemnify the schools if we have AEDs?
Using them on their property. If they're requiring it, the answer would be yes. If the school's requiring indemnification, they're saying you're going to use them on our school property, but you're requiring indemnification, I don't see how you can say no at this point. It's their
I guess it's
fields.
going to depend on whether their insurance requirements are something the risk manager,
Well, yeah, I'd like to see what they're asking for and see whether we can meet it.
that was my initial
Yeah, it
concern
was
about it.
a substantial amount.
Anyway, we'll get all the information to the solve, and we'll move forward. It seems like everything we can be doing not to implement the EDs, it seems that's what everybody's doing. And I don't understand if the school says they have them in the schools. I walk into church, they have them in the church. I walk into, my son's elementary school, they're in the elementary schools, you go to any public building, they have them, yet when we want to put them in the fields, we can't seem to get it done because of bureaucracy. But we don't have a key to a cabinet, right? Somebody might forget the key, or they might have to call somebody to get a key, and then how do you open the box? It's getting to be a little too much. So to finish your point, I think we'll still have those regular meetings.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can formalize it and keep it on a month-long schedule, just so we stay engaged.
My point was just, at some point, like they presented us with, you know, the hold harmless and indemnification. At some point, we have to engage them with documentation to move the discussion forward, because if we don't, I think at some point you need that, you know, when all is said and done, more is said than done. Sometimes I think that's where we're getting, and if we present them with language
Well,
that
I
would spur
think-
additional conversation.
I think what I believe their position is that they want to hear what our needs and desires are.
Yeah.
And we have now expressed that to them, so they need to go back to the board to say, this is what the borough wants, is this something that the board wants to accommodate? And I guess all indications, the answer is yes, and then we would have to get into the details of the agreement. Defining the maintenance, and defining the costs, and defining the rights for improvements like we were talking about. So I think we're almost there, and I think after, I believe they had a board meeting this week,
Yeah.
I will reach out to the superintendent and the board president to see if there's an update on that. And I said then I'll set up a meeting, another group meeting, maybe towards the end of the month. Rec meets the last week of the month,
I think so.
so maybe I'll try to do
In
it.
that last month, I think on the 26th.
I'll reach out.
I know the rec is meeting on the 15th for a field allocation.
But I don't believe that's the regular meeting.
It's not, no.
I'll try to have a meeting scheduled prior to the next rec meeting, so if there's movement from the board side, well, the rec commission can act if we need to. Any other old new business, new business, new old business? Chairs, Vito? Actually, we have some potential chairs. We'll have Stephanie email them. I don't want to take a vote because I think we're going to get 7 different answers. So, one choice.
Fair enough.
Any update with regard to our TV?
No, not yet.
Any update with regard to our IT person? No? Okay. Did we open to the public or just on the one item?
Just on the one item.
Then I will entertain a motion to open to the public again.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Would anybody like to address the council on any topic of anything? Yes, Mr. Zimmerman. Just don't get offended. Every time you speak, I have to leave the room.
Oh.
Then you have to leave now?
I'll
It's public comment,
Start, yes.
they're just not gonna comment, they're not gonna leave the room, we'll be here all night, they gotta go in and out, so they're gonna stay here,
I agree.
and then she's not gonna comment.
I'm back again. Hi. For the police table of organization, I know we were looking to talk about it before. We wanted to keep the scope narrow, so now that we have the opportunity to do so, we'd like to. I did some research since the last meeting. I emailed you all after the meeting. I hope the email went through. So I emailed you my prepared remarks as well as some other comments. And since then, I did additional research on surrounding agencies and, you know, what their tables look like. In sitting here tonight, though, for the time, since it's been open, 7:25, I had some time to think, and I tend to think that you can't really necessarily look at other towns or other departments to compare us to them. I think we're a unique agency in the sense of our population compared to the towns that I was looking at. I think we're unique in our access to Route 4 and the large artery there with Main Street and Grand Avenue. I think we're unique in the towns that we border, major city, Hackensack, shopping capital of the state, Paramus. So we definitely have our fair share of calls, are assisting other agencies, and I have the data. If you're interested, you can feel free to email me, but I don't think just rattling off numbers is going to do much to make an impression at this point. Our attorney, the PBA's attorney, Al Wunsch, is also present tonight. He's been with us since 7 o'clock. So I'd actually just like him to come up, and he may be able to echo some sentiments that I made last time, that maybe he'll articulate better than I did to give you a better understanding.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today on what is a very important position with this PBA. My name is Albert Wunsch. I'm an attorney that is from Englewood Cliffs, and I first want to state that the Borough of River Edge has recognized something that it took to 2004 in the state of New Jersey to understand, that every department needs a second in command. 2004, the state of New Jersey came up with the idea of a lieutenant governor. Why do we need a lieutenant governor, you say? Well, the governor leaves the state. Who's in charge? Well, okay, it could be this one, it could be that one, it could be the other one. We had 6 or 7 governors in between Christie Whitman and Chris Christie that were sworn in for purposes of being the governor, because the person in charge at the time left the state. There was no provision for a second in command. 2004, a joint resolution of the Assembly and the Senate, spearheaded by such people as Senator Sarlo at the time, the brother of your attorney, got this to a vote in front of the populace of New Jersey, and it was a constitutional amendment, overwhelmingly being voted in by the people of New Jersey, that we need a second in command. The bedrock and cornerstone of any paramilitary institution is the command structure. They call it a chain of command for a reason. It must be strong and confident. There is a proposal pending to do away with that second in command, and that is a real problem. There's a problem from the standpoint of the chain of command, but there's also a problem that will come back to haunt, possibly, this council, because currently you have 2 lieutenants doing captain's work. They have been doing captain's work with lieutenant's pay. Most PBAs, and I represent a number of them, would be up in arms about something like that, and demanding that the lieutenants be compensated for the time they spend doing captain's work. It's only fair. This PBA has not done that. Why? Because the captain's position is there, and they want someone from that rank to be put there. They want to keep that opportunity open. By doing away with that position, you may open yourselves up to liability in that respect. And I don't think that that is something that maybe was thought about when the idea came to do away with the position. The position's been there for 8 years, no one's touched it. There have been lieutenants who split everything.
21 years, sir.
21 years. I'm sorry, 8 years with the lieutenants that are there now. The one lieutenant would have been with 8 years of time that he could be looking to get captain's pay for the work that's been done. Because as I've been told, the chief said he divided up the responsibilities of the captain and gave it to
the lieutenants. No one has forced the hand of this council to appoint a captain. No one has done anything along those lines. But the fact that the captain's position is there, it should stay there, remain there. It was mentioned in the paper, I saw an article about what happened at the last session of the council when this provision was proposed and discussed in closed session, which I still don't understand why it would have been in closed session, since there was no rights notice given to any member of this department that any person was being specifically discussed. I don't know if it's personnel, if you're discussing a position. Okay, if you're discussing someone who is part of a position, that's one thing. But no names, as I understand, were mentioned because no rights notices were given to any members of this department. I checked, the president checked. We didn't see any rights notices that were delivered. Nobody told us that there was. Yet this position itself was discussed in closed session. Mr. Sarlo discussed before about procedural issues. I don't know if that is a proper procedural issue. I'm not really that interested in that right now. Okay, but I just want to bring that out, that I don't know why this could not have been discussed in the open last time as opposed to in a closed session. I also saw in the paper that one of the councilmen, I believe it was Councilman Acquafreda, mentioned that, gave an analogy about this being something of like a Christmas tree with one section missing. I like the analogy, but I would give you another
copyrights on it.
but I would give you another analogy. A wagon wheel. A wagon wheel has a cap, which is the chief, has a center, which is the captain, has this outside that holds the spokes, and has the spokes going out and coming back in. That's what a police department is. It's like that wagon wheel. So if the spokes are missing or weak, the wheel crunches. If the cap is not on tightly, the wheel does not have the ability to go in a circle. And if the center is gone, there is no wheel. That is what we have here. The command structure of this police department is sacrosanct. The need for a second in command is paramount to any organization. God forbid something happens to the chief at the scene, or the chief is otherwise indisposed for other reasons. These men need to know, and these women need to know, that there is somebody there that can take the command and go forward. That there's no guessing. Do I go to Lieutenant A, Lieutenant B, or if this resolution passes, Lieutenant C? Do I go to the administrative sergeant? With all due respect, I represent a number of large departments. Lodi, Englewood, Fort Lee, North Bergen, all 100 men or closer to 100 men departments. None of them have an administrative sergeant. You don't need a Radar O'Reilly in your department, okay? But you do need a Captain America that can sit there and be the second in command if God forbid something happens to the chief. There has to be someone that the men and women of this department can look forward, can look to for leadership purposes without doing the three-card Monty. Do I go to Lieutenant A, B, or C? It's not fair to them. It's not safe for them. It's not fair for the people of this town. It's not safe for the people of this town. The need has come to take a look at this resolution and keep the captain's position there. I don't see the need for an administrative sergeant. I really don't. Not for a department this small. But I do see the need for a captain. I do see the need for a second in command. I think that that is absolutely important for everyone in this town, and it would make everyone rest better at night knowing that there is somebody one step below if, God forbid, there's a problem with the town. I thank you for the opportunity to speak. I enjoyed your meeting. I like the library, by the way, and have a great night. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to make any comments, ask any questions? Chief?
I'd just like to address some of the issues in as much as it's come up tonight and managing this to put on the record.
No, I'm sorry, Chief, was,
No,
I mean, this is gonna, I'm assuming, this is not the public hearing, so there will be a public hearing, I assume, on the 21st unless it's changed, but
I'd be
you
happy to
certainly,
hold my comments until
you
that
can
time.
certainly,
public
it's
comment.
public comment, you can make your comments if you,
If there's an opportunity to address these concerns by me at the next meeting, I'd be happy to do it.
or you could, I don't wanna say that I'm abridging your right to speak now, so
Absolutely not, I
you can
won't
speak
do
now
that.
if you want, the council's here, so.
As long as the council's aware that I have my own concerns
You
that
want
I'd
to
like
change
to
the
address
head,
directly.
or you want?
No, we can, I think, wait until we have the discussion on ordinance.
Okay,
Done.
that's fine, thank you.
Okay? Anything else?
No.
I'm going to, enter motion to adjourn work session.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I need, we're gonna still stay, because we'll have.
Contracts,
Yes.